Right. All right. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Um, Maybe I'm gonna ask you to mute one of your mics, one of your speakers, I mean, not the mic, but the speaker. Yeah. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Mind the Mental Monday. It's good to be here on this Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday Monday. And I'm especially excited tonight to have as a very special guest my wonderful, loving hubby who agreed to join me tonight in at a kind of a spur of the moment. But the topic that I wanted to talk about tonight, I just thought that he would be just perfect, a perfect guest to have on tonight. And so I want to go ahead and put in the chat as you normally would do, where you are tuning in from. Let me know maybe how you spent this Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Monday. I know for me today, I watched the tribute that took place at the King Center with Reverend Dr. Bernice King. And, there were so many just wonderful tributes. I then, later on in the afternoon, I watched the Win with Black Women that were paying homage to the over 550 Black women who were elected to various political positions across the country uh this and during this election. And so we've got a lot to be grateful for. And so I typically spend the King holiday just being reflective about what am I doing to make sure that the legacy is continuing on my behalf. What am I doing for my grandchildren that are coming up? What am I doing for that next generation, and how am I helping my children's generation to be prepared to stay in good trouble and fight the good fight that we unfortunately have to continue to fight. So tonight, I want to talk about the impact of social justice on our mental health. Because we know that as we are, keeping up the fight to preserve our rights, to make sure that our rights don't get taken away, and to get in that good trouble, to make sure that we are maintaining keeping up holding up that mantle, and making sure that even when other people want to move us back, that we resist and that we keep pushing forward. Because if enough of us push in that forward movement, uh, that other side that would wish to push us backwards will get knocked down. And so we've we've had to do it over and over and over again from generation to generation. There's always some evil force that pops up that wants to try to control people, wants to try to hold people back, as if somebody else coming up is going to keep them from getting something. I'm not sure. I don't understand that mindset. I don't think I want to understand the mindset, but I think that as we are moving forward in these next few years to come, that there's going to be a lot of good trouble to get into. And as we're doing that, we must maintain um, our mental health as we continue in what might be a struggle. So my special guest again today, I want to think this is what your third time. being with me, babe, I think.
Either third or fourth.
Yeah, so um it's always good when we come together. I'm hoping that there's not an echo happening on.
It's probably from my phone that I'm turning it down, but I could still hear myself on Instagram. See if I can mute that mic. How's that?
Yeah, yes, that's much better.
Okay, I
But
mute.
can you Joy, please let me know if I'm sorry, you guys that are listening. Can you let us know in the chat if you
No,
can hear him on Instagram?
oh, there's no echo here. Okay,
Okay, but you can hear him talking, right, on Instagram. Just want to make sure that Instagram can hear as well, because this will okay, great, perfect.
okay.
All right. So sorry about that, everybody. You had to get the technical things situated here. But I invited my husband to be a part of this conversation because of his social activism. And because, as he has discussed on here before, um, we have talked about mental health challenges, just different kinds of mental health challenges together many times. And so I wanted to have him to talk about his experiences in some of the social justice challenges that he has been a part of, and the impact of those on his personal mental health, and then what he has done to sort of try to stay mentally healthy and stay mentally fit at the same time that he is, being a social activist out here, in the streets, fighting in those social justice streets, trying to make sure that we maintain our rights, our dignity, and all of those things that are just our birthright as humans. So I don't know where you want to start, babe. I'm going to let you just kind of start with, um, you know, tell the people a little bit about your role in various social activism things that you've been a part of,
Mhm.
and their impact on your mental health, how it challenges your mental health sometimes, and then what you kind of do to keep your mind healthy as you're fighting the good fight.
Well, first of all, babe, thank you for allowing me to be on your podcast, Mind and Mental. Real proud of all that you've been accomplishing, with this particular venture and task. So love you and thank you
Yeah.
for this opportunity. For those who are meeting me for the very first time, um, my name is Reverend Dr. Wayne M. Weathers. I am the organizer as well as pastor of Vision of Hope Baptist Church. So I wear a bunch of hats from a pastoral perspective. Again, I'm pastor, organizer, Vision of Hope Baptist Church. From a educator's perspective, I'm an adjunct professor, worked at various uh, colleges, Bible colleges, universities, etc. I'm currently an adjunct professor at Palmer Theological Seminary / Eastern University. From an entrepreneurial perspective, I am a consultant with my business, BFG LLC. And what we're here to talk about today, I'm also a liberation theologian, which means that from my theological perspective, I believe that God is on the side of the oppressed. And so, through that concept of being a liberation theologian, I'm constantly engaged in social action issues to render justice for those who may have found themselves in an unjust situation. And so, that's just to summarize my social activism.
So tell us a little bit about some of that social activism. Just you've been involved in a lot over the years, and maybe pick maybe one or two specific sort of instances where you have had to kind of, join in some kind of social activism that has impacted you, mentally, and kind of where it took you mentally, and then, how you were able to withstand it, and how you were able to come through it and prepare, for to continue that activism.
So in this one, I'll walk gingerly because it's still an active situation, and I won't fill in the blanks because I don't have the family's permission. But currently now, I haven't been deep diving into it, but for almost a year and a half, there's been a social justice fight that myself and a group of pastors helping someone that we know, and you know who the person is, Benita, whose son is in his early, close to mid 20s, shot someone in self-defense, never had a police record, licensed to carry. You look at the video, you see the person lunge for him. He pulls out a gun and he shoots him. And, they said, the authorities said the mistake he made was he left the scene, but he left out of fear that the person was going to come back and retaliate. So the mother gets a lawyer, take him to the police station. This is almost a year or so ago. And thinking that, he would turn himself in, that it wouldn't be catastrophic. And then he turns himself in, and then to their surprise, they send him in the Philadelphia area to State Road. And so, to give those a visual, what Rikers Island is to New York is what State Road is to Philadelphia. And so, when I heard about it, I just felt spiritually led to help out. And then, for someone who doesn't have a criminal record, let me say this again, for someone who doesn't have a criminal record, and then in return, he gets hit with a $500,000 bail, which doesn't make any sense, which means that the family has to come up with 50,000. You follow me? So now he's in jail. He's out now, still awaiting trial. He's at that time he's in jail, $50,000 bail, not letting the mother go in to see him. And so now, just the Lord just laid on my spirit to help the mother, help the family out. And so being able to organize pastors, connect with those who I know in that particular state road system as a clergy, being having an opportunity to go in and minister to him, be able to tell his mother I was able to talk to him. To see the bail go from 500 to 250,000. And in addition to that, they got to put money on commissary. They got to pay for collect telephone calls, etc. And then the kicker is, even when they were able to come up with the money to pay the bail, he's still sitting in jail because they're using the excuse that house arrest system is backed up. You follow me? It's backed up. And so
Right.
being able to talk to someone in that particular system, to put in a call and say, hey, this isn't right. This dude has been sitting in jail after the bail has been paid for 2 weeks. 2 weeks he's had to sit in jail. And the bail has already been paid. And through that activism, through contact, someone who knows someone who knows someone, when they found out in less than 48 hours, he's released. And so now all of the intricacies that goes on there. Now, it does mess with your mental health, because for us who engage in social justice, we don't do it just to do it. We do it because we care. And when we get involved, we throw ourselves deeply into it. So there were times, I had sleepless nights, concerned about his well-being in prison. There's some things that, took place and everything. Um, yeah, I'll just stop right there. It's not that deep because I don't want somebody's mind to go in a totally different direction, but some of the assault that he encountered in there from, let's just say staff, and I'll just stop right
Mhm.
there,
Right. Yeah.
just was unjust. And then you get to a point where you start feeling like a failure, like you've let the mother down, you've let the son down, you let the family down. And I remember you saying to me, Wayne, you're not a failure. You know, you've done a lot. Give yourself credit for what you've done. But at that time, when it was hard to get him out of jail, felt like a failure. You know, um,
Mhm.
when he had trouble posting bonds, felt like a failure. Um,
Right.
Even when we helped him get a lawyer, and that first instance didn't work out, feeling like, yo, that I set him up with the wrong lawyer. The mother didn't think that or anything like that. You think that because you care, you want the best for the individual. First of all, known him since he was a kid. He's not a bad person. You got me? Not a bad
Right.
person. And so when you see this happen to someone that you've seen grow up, it's like you want to intervene, you want to help, you want to like get on a race board, you want to wipe that slate clean to help him get out of this particular situation. And then you find yourself sinking into a hole, like not giving yourself credit for what it is that you've done, but just sinking into a hole.
Yeah, I mean, and I was there, and have been there, I sort of know all the intricacies
Yeah,
of that particular situation, and to see all that you went through to try to get justice for this young person, and feeling like it's not enough. I think that a lot of times we may go through, depending on what kind of fight you're fighting, what kind of career you're in, whether it's a job or in ministry. There are times where we want to do what's right and try to help our fellow humans, and it was like whatever we do doesn't feel like enough, and especially if it ends up not being something that ends up being, to their advantage, we feel like, could we have done more?
right,
And the answer is that even in just trying, even in not just sort of sitting idly by and just watching it happen, you're doing something. As long as you're getting in the fight some kind of way and not just sitting sort of passively and like letting things happen, it's something that, to be grateful for. It's something that, you may have done more, and you did do more than you realize,
right.
as we've heard from that parent. And so, I think another issue that you have faced, and I don't know if this is the one that you were going to talk about as well, is being a caregiver. And as a caregiver, having to be an advocate for your loved one, um, and maybe sometimes the same thing, sort of not, um, how it impacts you mentally, that you're not feeling like you're doing as much as you should or can when you're really doing all that you can.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about that a little bit?
So yeah, so it there's two perspectives or two situations. I don't know which is the right word to use. Um, Being an advocate for those you're providing care, and that's parents, is so critical. The first go around um, with my mother, we say mom, but just for the audience, with my mother, is
Mhm.
still a painful journey that I'm still walking through, even though she's taking her last breath. Because there were things that happened with her medical care that I still struggle with today. Still wondering if there's more I could have done. And I know you've ministered to me, therapists has ministered to me, therapists have given me therapy, family has really ministered to me. Um, but I never forget 48 hours before she took her last she took her last breath. 48 hours before she took her last breath. I can remember getting hit. Hold on a second, yo. I'm sorry, Nita. See, this is the social justice stuff. Trump pardons about 1,500 January 6th defendants. It just hit the news.
Yeah, well, he said he was going to do it.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
yeah, the social justice fight is on. Sorry. So going back to originally what I was sharing.
I'm
Um,
sorry. I think you got stopped on Instagram.
oh, just a second. I probably So I'll keep talking. Um, I think I'm back now.
There you go. Okay.
So just the guilt that I had, especially with my mom towards the end of her life, is I was hit with this guilt that when people are in trouble, you can call politicians to help get people out of distressing situations, but you can't do it for your own mother.
Mm,
You got me? You can't do it for
mhm,
your own mother. It's not like I did not, because when I started to see some things, I start putting in phone calls to folks that I know, whether it's the state rep, whether it's, people that I've had contact with work in the first presidential campaign and things like that. But for others, when I do it, it produced gold. But for my mother, it produced coal. You
mm,
And so there was a heavy guilt that I carried. Like, why is it that when it's people, other people, whether it's church, community, or strangers, you can get on the phone, you can email, you can text, you can get a response and help get them out of their situation with the snap of a finger. But when it's your own mother, and it's not like I let her sit there, I tried. You got me?
right.
I tried
Yeah.
from complaining to the hospital, challenging the medical doctors, putting some medical staff in their place, very candid, putting medical staff in their place, getting
Mhm,
on them for the mistreatment of my mother. And yet, when I saw some stuff that went down, the calls that I made produced coal and not gold. It produced
mm.
coal for my mother, but it produced gold for others.
Right. And I think the important thing to think about there, as we mentioned earlier, is that you tried.
Right.
You did the best you could with what you had. And you're not going to know somebody in every industry, that's going to be able to, with the snap of a finger, help. And then sometimes it's a situation that really just can't be helped. Um, and so you did all that you could to protect her, to be a mouthpiece for her, to advocate for her care, and unfortunately, her life didn't span she her
Mhm.
life on this earth ended in that as you were in the process, and that's something that you could never have any control over.
Mhm.
Um, And so, but what are some things that you have been able to do? I know that you mentioned therapy as one, and just having others to talk to
Mhm.
about when you go through those situations. What have you done, to try to help when you find yourself feeling like that, feeling
Sure.
like you can't do enough to help?
That's a great question. So, what I've come to realize is, especially which helps me with my mental health, number one, I'm not God. I'm not God.
Mhm.
Uh, I can assist, but I'm not God. And I think one of the problems that I was, encountering, even from the first situation that I started off with, even with my mother and other social justice situations that I've been engaging in, I have been engaging in a manner, relying on God, but in essence, trying to be God at the same time.
Mm,
And only
mhm.
God can, I'm sorry, I have to get my adapter for my phone. Only God can produce the desired outcome. And
Yeah.
but I found myself trying to be God, trying to resolve the situation, trying to heal the situation, trying to resurrect the situation. And so I had to come to terms that I'm not God. Not that I was trying to be God, but not even realizing that I'm trying to do what I'm not capable of doing because I'm a human being with limitations. Um, Secondly, I've had to learn how to step away,
Mm,
you know, because you can
mm,
become so engrossed in the social justice fight that you wake up with it on your mind. You sit down and eat lunch. You sit down at breakfast and eat. You go to lunch and eat. You go to dinner and eat, you have snacks in between, and you never let it wind down. So there's times where I have to just step away. No text
Mhm.
message, no emails, no meetings, no phone calls. I literally just have to step away just to get a peace of mind so that I
Mm,
can get back on the battlefield. Third thing is, baby, and you know this, exercise, martial art, lifting weights. Is so critical for me. Carrying the weight of the world on my shoulder, um, ministering to people, fighting for social justice for those who are either bullied or oppressed. I need outlets. And
yeah.
so for me, going into the gym and lifting. For me, going into the school of martial arts and mixed martial arts, and just really, um, when I go in there, Tiger Schumann, that's where I work out. Tiger Schumann, mixed martial arts and martial arts. When I go work out, I'm in a whole different world. So when I walk through those doors, and that's how they train us, when I walk through those doors, I'm not in the arena of social justice. I'm not in the pulpit. I'm there to work out. So all of the tension and the stress and the frustration, it gets taken out on that punching bag or that
Mm,
punching pad. Not in sparring because we are taught not to hurt each other in sparring and everything, but on that punching bag and that punching pad. And then when you have to do the cardio exercises and things of that nature, I pour my all into it because I am getting out of my system all of the frustration and the tension and the depression and this, that, so on and so forth. So those are some of the steps that I take in order to find myself getting out of that hole that I find myself in.
right. I think about, I wonder what kinds of outlets those who, fought the fight during the civil rights movement had. Because during that time, there were very little places where people could go, Black people in particular, could go to have an outlet for the kinds of oppression that they faced and the systemic racism that still continues to this day. But I think for them, the church
Yeah.
was an outlet, was the place that they were able to go and sort of, even through their praise and worship, just sort of get out some of the angst that they might be feeling. I know that earlier today I was looking at a post from Bernice King, and she had all these different pictures of her father, and she said, which of these pictures kind of resonates with you the most? Because these are pictures that wouldn't have necessarily, I think they were personal family pictures that wouldn't have been like out in the public eye during the time. And several of them were pictures of Dr. King in the backyard, pushing his kids on the swing, playing games with them, and that sort of thing, and being with his wife. And those were the kinds of things that resonated with me because when you think about somebody at that level who was just the one, there were so many people that were involved in the civil rights movement, but he was the one who was sort of pulled up into the spotlight and having to go through all of the being arrested and being tormented and just being threatened, and then finally that threat having been made good on. But before that, going through all of that, knowing that you have these little children at home,
Mhm.
right? That you have a young family, and what he must have been going through, as he knew when he said, "I've been to the mountaintop. I may not get, I may not get to the promised land with you, but I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen it." And he knew in that moment that his life was going to be cut short. And to know that, and I think about just what the kind of mental turmoil that he must have gone through. I think that now as we see, as we that is the action of that 2025 in rolling back civil rights as it is happening in real time, um, there's going to be a need for us, those of us who will engage in the fight, to find ways, find outlets to be able to take care of our mental health. So I'm really glad that you were able to just say some practical things that you do to help your mental health. Some of the things that I like to do, as you know, is wake up and just meditate in the
Yeah,
morning.
I was going to touch on that.
Um, and then after getting through my period of meditation, getting up and doing my little workout, my little I shouldn't say little, it's not little, it's my workout, my YouTube workout. But when I do it, it makes me feel so much better. It makes me feel more energetic. It helps me think more clearly. And we are going to need to be able to think clearly. There are going to be things that we are going to need to be able to do as they're trying to, take away public education. The church is going to have to start, educating. We're going to have to start having Black history, African American history classes in our churches, and making sure that our children are properly educated. So, as what are some things that you've been contemplating or just thinking through on this Martin Luther King day, and just juxtaposing it to the other thing that happened as well today? Because I know that there are a lot of people out there who mentally have tuned out. Um, and maybe some people are just planning to just tune out for the next 2 to 4 years, but we can't afford to tune out. We've got to tune in,
Mhm.
and we've got to we've got to stay focused, right? So what have been some of your thoughts, as you were just, doing your sort of thoughts for today, and you're meditating on
Mhm.
the life of Dr. King and sort of how it has impacted you in your will to want to keep up that social activism.
So if I could just take one quick sidebar, something critical I need to bring out. We talked about how do I deal with just the stress and everything, and I listed all of these outlets and things like that. There's one thing I need to mention. Um, One of the dangers is choosing
Mm,
unhealthy outlets, because I don't want people to walk away with, oh, he steps aside. He recognizes, one, he's not God. Two, he'll step aside, get himself together, and get back into the fight. He'll work out, he'll do martial arts. And I did, fail to mention, yes, I do engage in prayer every morning. When I find myself, Rev, I am meditating. I'm in God's word. So I also utilize the spiritual disciplines. But before I got to those mechanisms, right, of realizing I'm not God, the martial arts, the working out, etc., I had my unhealthy outlets. I remember First Pass when we first started Vision of Hope Baptist Church, and the stress to get it, to find a building, go from a fellowship hall to a building, increasing membership, et cetera, making sure that the church will be built to last. My unhealthy outlet was M&Ms, peanuts.
yeah,
You
I
remember that?
remember.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Whenever I got stressed out, I'm
Hmm.
eating a big bag of M&M peanuts. The ice cream, you know, going to the ice cream shop late at night, not late at night, but just say before they close or everything like that, indulging in ice cream. The sugar fits, which you definitely know, the sugar fits, running to the supermarket because my stress level was so high. I don't drink alcohol, I don't do drugs or anything like that. But well, take that back. The sugar is like a drug, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And so those were the unhealthy outlets. So I had to train myself not to engage in the unhealthy outlets when I'm stressed out, to go
Hmm.
from a negative outlet to a positive outlet. And then finally, there are those times where I'm so stressed that I don't even want to go to sleep. Because if I go to sleep, then I got to wake up the next day and I got to deal with it. And so
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm thinking you got to get sleep anyway. But in my mind, I'm like, if I could just stay up as long as possible, I ain't got to deal with it, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a danger with the unhealthy outlets because the unhealthy outlets don't allow you to recognize that you can't get away from it. It gives a false
Yes.
sense of escape that you really are not escaping. You just find yourself plunging into a hole. So watch out
Mhm.
for the unhealthy outlets. So sorry about that.
That's
Hey,
good.
yeah.
No, 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 that's good. That's really good because there are some unhealthy outlets in which we can engage, and that is not going to be helpful in any kind of fight. you
Mhm.
know and so it's important to recognize what are those positive outlets that can actually enhance your thinking, that can actually
Mhm.
enhance how you feel. Not that sort of false feeling that's going to wear off in a few hours, but that sense of refreshing and feeling good about yourself and about what you have the ability to do.
Yeah.
I know that there might be those that view this who they're not necessarily into the whole social justice fight, um or who don't feel like they have the power to engage. Like, what are some ways that people can do their part to engage in social activism? Everybody doesn't have to be a Dr. King. Like, there needs to be the people who made the biggest, most profound differences during the civil rights movement were those people that were that were behind the scenes. In
Mhm.
particular, a lot of those women that were behind the scenes, making sure that they ate, making sure that messaging got out because they didn't have social media back then.
Right.
And so everybody had a part to play, no matter how big or small. Everybody couldn't be Rosa Parks and not give up their seat on the bus, but everybody has some kind of role that they could play. What would you say could be some of the ways in which people can continue to get in good trouble and engage in social activism as we are entering this period that we're entering in?
I think all of us are called to engage in some aspect of social justice. That's the bottom line. You can't avoid it because if you don't engage, God has a way of putting it at your doorstep for you to engage. So
Mm,
yeah, so what are ways for people to get involved? Maybe you're not called to lead the group, but maybe you're called to be able to speak out about various issues that is happening either in your family, your life, or in your community. And it may not all have to be like a civil rights march. Some of the simple stuff, like when we first moved here to Sicklerville, cars were speeding in our development. I got in contact with our council member, to get justice. How do we get justice? We were able to get a 25 mile per hour sign put within our development. Now it's getting a little bit out of hand now. So the social justice aspect of it is you utilize your voice to speak and address it. You don't have to lead the whole movement, but you can be very active and involved and speak about the issue. Number two, you basically um, become educated about what's going on. This is not a
yes,
time to put your head in the sand like an ostrich and don't see what's going on. You basically educate yourself about the things that are going on and pray to God. How would He allow you to use that knowledge that you have to be involved? If I mean,
mm,
again, you don't
yes,
have to be the leader, you don't have to be the drum major, you can be the cymbal player, you know. You can be the clarinet player, you can be the
yeah,
trombone player, you I don't know what role you can play, but there's always a role for each and every one of us to play because some people will
yes,
use that as an excuse. Oh, I don't have a role, so I'm just going to sit on the side. No, we all have a role, especially what's happening now with this new administration. All of us have a role to play. Number three, now that we're in the social media aspect and everything, you can post, you can blog, you can share your opinions and things like that. We are called to blow the trumpet when the injustice is taking place. You can either write an
Mhm.
editorial in the newspaper, you can post
Mhm.
on Facebook, you can post something on Instagram, you can do a podcast and educate and inform our brothers and sisters. And then finally, it's time to get involved, directly,
Yes.
directly. But
Yeah.
maintain your integrity. I'm able to do what I do because God has called me to do it, but I also ensure that I have the integrity to do it. Because if you don't
Yes.
have the integrity to fight for justice, then um, it's not going to be effective. If you are foul, but yet trying to render justice, a foul person can't render justice because people will always see your foulness and not see the justice that you're trying to accomplish. So definitely
Yes.
you have to maintain your integrity. And you know me,
Yeah.
my yays, and my nays is my nays. Sometimes
Yeah.
it helps me, and sometimes it surely hurts me.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, my yays is my yays, my nays is my nays. So you definitely have to have the integrity to engage in the aspect of social justice. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you absolutely did. I mean, I think that even getting involved locally, in your local area, your school board, make because you've seen over the last few years that a lot of these changes, book bans and all this kind of thing, slowly but surely removing history from schools
Mhm.
started in these little local school boards, and it just sort of spread like wildfire, and then before we know it, it's an inferno, right? um and so those things that we might think of as small, maybe we're not out in front of the media every day. Maybe we're not like you said, I like the how you said, maybe you're not, the drum major, but maybe you're the cymbal player.
Mhm.
Everybody has a role, has a way that they can get involved, and try to, as I mentioned earlier, push back on some of those on those that would try to mow us down, right?
Mhm.
So yes, I appreciate all that you have mentioned here about ways that we can get involved, and also about how, as we get involved, understand that there are going to be times where we are faced with things that are going to impact us mentally. There are going to be rollbacks, maybe, that are just gonna, even like, I can't even watch that's one of the things that I can't watch 24-hour
Right.
news. I just can't do it anymore because, it's like it'll be like it was 4 years ago. You just hear a lot of just nonsense, but it's nonsense that's in control, and that we're seemingly in control. And it just makes you just want to completely shut down. At the same time, we have to recognize the things that are happening and figure out ways that we must engage. We must think about, those next generations. When the civil rights movement was happening, that generation was thinking about us. And we're in the Gen X generation, so they were thinking about us. They were doing things to try to make things easier for us. So now it's our turn. We have to continue that for the next generations that are coming up. And now that we are grandparents, it makes it even that much more. Um, uh, uh, we need to be that much more intentional about, kind of keeping up that fight. So, and teaching them, that we can't ever get comfortable. I think that's kind of a mistake that our generation made, that, we had the civil rights movement before us. And then when we came up, we were able to go to school with people of other, races and ethnicities. And we felt like we are, like we made it, we arrived.
Mhm.
We came up, we were able to vote for a black president twice, and we thought that we made it. And in thinking that we made it, we fell asleep and we let down the generation behind us. And I just, we have to let those next generations understand that good trouble is always going to be something that we need to be engaged in, because if we aren't, history can go back. History can repeat
Mhm.
itself if we allow it to. And so, as we are gearing up, we have to make sure that we are minding our mental in the process. Eat healthy, eat well, um, get exercise consistently, have some kind of a routine, have a sleep routine, as well as a morning routine that will jumpstart your day, and that will allow you to think clearly and positively. We have to keep going, and we have faced hard times before. We have, as a people, for the last 250 years plus, we have faced trials and tribulations and hard times, and we have made it through, and we will make it through again. This is not, it's not going to stop us. Gamble and Huff said, "Ain't no stopping us
Helping us
now."
now. Mhm.
We got to make sure that we hold on to that, and that we, take care of ourselves, so that we have the temperament, the energy, the wherewithal to stay in the fight and keep propelling ourselves forward.
Hey,
So,
hey,
okay.
I'm sorry. Just I mean, I know you're ready to bring it to a close. Couple of quick things. Wow, when it comes to this whole concept of social justice, if I can just share this with my listeners, one voice can spark a flame that leads to a positive inferno. When we were interviewing candidates for Black clergy, you're going to know where I'm going with this. This was around 2016, 2017. And as the Political Affairs Committee chair, I hit one politician with a question. And I said to him, if Black clergy endorses you, right, what would be your position on loan forgiveness for clergy? Because I said, there's loan forgiveness for everyone else, but there's not loan forgiveness for clergy. A couple of years later, he called me and he says, I remember you asking me this question. This is a U.S. congressman outside in the Philadelphia area, Brendan Boyle to be exact, because it's a public record. And so he says, I'm going to draft legislation. I want you to bring a group of preachers together so we can meet about it, because I want to draft legislation to present to Congress to get loan forgiveness for those who have gone to a religious institution, etc. Right? Um, and so next thing you know, brought the clergy together. He pulls me to the side. Again, one voice a flame can start a fire that can lead to a positive inferno. Then he tells me, he says, I crafted the legislation. Get ready for this, listeners. I crafted legislation and I made you a co-author and I'm
Hmm.
presenting it to Congress, right? So that loan
Hmm.
forgiveness can occur with clergy. It was presented, but that around that time it was presented, that was around Trump's first impeachment in his first administration. But
Mm.
again, one voice. I never said,
Yeah.
hey, give us loan forgiveness and put my name on the legislation. I never even knew it was going to
Right.
go that high. Hey, but somewhere in
Yeah.
Congress, there is a legislation with my name as a co-author, with Brendan
Hmm.
Boyle as the author of loan forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thank you for bringing that point up, because I think a lot of times, um, people think that, you have to, you got to have 1 million followers, on social media, or I'll say, 1,000, even just 1,000 followers or more, right? To have anybody pay attention to what you're saying. But that's not the case. One person, one voice can, like you said, like flame. Maybe that's maybe not something we should use with the fires going
Yes,
on
you're right.
in
Yeah, that's
California
a
right
good point.
now.
That's a good
I'll use
point.
a different
Yeah.
analogy, but one voice can catch on and bring something to light. That, imagine if you had just been thinking it. Imagine if you had just kept it to
Mm-hmm.
yourself and just sat in the corner with it. Where does it go? It doesn't go anywhere. But when you have a voice, it's there's an episode of what is that show? Where did I get? I want to think it was a different world,
I'm glad it wasn't the
but
Twilight Zone, but that's me and your issue.
the Twilight Zone, go back and look at some of them 1960 Twilight Zone, and you will see stuff that's happening today that they're addressing on the Twilight Zone. I wish we were in the Twilight Zone right now
Yeah, it's true too.
because it feels Twilight Zone-ish.
So listen,
But anyway, I
this
digress.
is just our issue. This is our issue. I just threw it out there. But go ahead.
I think it was a different world though, and I think it was an episode where I can't remember the character, but somebody said, "You are a voice in this world, and you deserve to be heard."
Oh yeah, I remember
I
that
think that
episode.
is something that everybody needs to take in. I never forgot that because even though it was a character on a TV show, I took it in
Mhm.
for myself that Benita, you are a voice in this world and you deserve to be heard. And so go ahead. Oh, it was Whoopi. Thank you, Joy.
Yes,
It was
yes,
Whoopi Goldberg on A Different World. Yes. And so we all have to realize that we are voices and our voices deserve to be heard. And now we have platforms, we have social media where we can allow our voices to be heard. It doesn't mean that we might not have 1,000, 3,000, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, whatever viewers or listeners or whatever, but if one person hears it
hmm
and has the resource or can take it someplace where it can get implemented, then it's worth it. So I would encourage all of us in as a call to action to let your voice be heard. Um, do your research. Look at what's going on in your community, in the community in which you live. Go to the council meetings in your district. Go to the school board meetings. Just, it may not be, all the time, but every once in a while, I mean, like, show up. And so you can hear what is going on because a lot of us, myself included, don't even really know what's going on in the communities in which we live.
hmm
But that's where it starts. That is where our role in social justice and social activism starts. It starts where we live,
Hey,
and then it branches out from there. We have, as I was watching that was Win with Black Women that were talking about all the women across the Black women across the country, the over 550 that were elected. Some of us, in getting involved, making these relationships, might find that we should run for office. I would encourage you, if that is in your purview, to do it. Don't let anybody silence your voice. Don't let anybody tell you what you can't do. Don't let anybody tell you that you don't have enough followers and so forth. No, it takes building relationships. Just takes your voice. Let your voice be heard and be heard unashamedly. But in letting your voice be heard, make sure that you educate yourself on the issues at hand. Make sure that you do your research. Make sure you're not getting your information from TikTok, or even if you get information from TikTok, make sure that it's legit. But make sure you go to the legitimate sources to make sure that it's correct
mhm.
before sharing it, and that sort of thing. But I just think that we all have roles to play. We can all get involved. And I want to encourage us that as we are getting in good trouble, as we are letting our voices be heard, as we are engaging in social discourse, that as we are doing all of that, that we will, in the process, take care of our mental health. Because we must be mentally strong to engage in the social discourse that we're going to be needing to engage in, not just even over these next few years, but I think from now on.
If I know it's times of the essence, if I could just give this final comment, this is what I meant to say
Please.
earlier. You talked about good trouble. So what people have to understand is, and this is going to mess you up mentally, when you're engaging in social justice, when you're a social justice advocate. What's going to mess you up mentally is that when you get involved in good trouble, you want to be well liked.
Mm, mm,
You want to be well
mhm,
liked. You
mhm,
can't
mhm.
engage in a social justice initiative and look to be liked by everyone. Because when
Yes.
you're engaging in social justice, you are turning tables, you are challenging entities, you are possibly cutting off somebody's funding source because you are raising questions. And that was the very first social justice fight. You remember that in Chapel Hill. That was the very
Yeah.
first social justice fight I ever engaged in, asked demanding the town of Chapel Hill, stop funding this particular organization, et cetera, et cetera. And the vitriol I got from that, not only from the organization, media, etc. So when you're looking to get in good trouble, don't look to be well liked. You
Mhm.
can't get in good
Yeah.
trouble and look to get clickbait, how
Yeah.
many clicks you're going to get a favorability and things like that. And so I just want to share with my brothers and sisters that you have to be spiritually strong and mentally strong when you're engaging in a social justice initiative. But if you're looking to be liked by everyone, you're going to sink in a deep depression, because when you're fighting in social justice, everybody's not going to like you. Everybody's
Yeah.
not going to embrace you. And even when they shake their hand and give you a hug, that don't mean they like you or love you. That's the ultimate sign of betrayal as well.
Yeah. And even those that you think that you're actually fighting for sometimes
Mm-hmm.
will be the very ones who will come up against you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reality. But for us, in our Christian faith, we saw that with our Savior. The very
Yeah.
ones that he was fighting for. When he tried to make changes in the systems that were in place in his time, they said crucify him, give us Barabbas, and that's what we have right now. So um, thank you all for tuning in to Mind the Mental Monday on this special Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. commemoration episode. I am proud to, uh, be able to say that Dr. King's legacy has directly helped and impacted me and our family and our children. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure that we honor him and keep his messages flowing. Not just I have a dream, but his messages about economic equality. We need to, I mean, because now we're all the oligarchs seemingly have all the power right now, but we got to keep moving. We have to keep fighting for all kinds of equality for everyone, so that everyone has an equal playing field, and so that Dr. King's legacy will continue. So any final words before we close out, babe?
We are challenged more than ever to keep the vision and dream alive, and not only for it to be a dream, but for it to be a reality. Because there are those that want to take the dream and erase it and make us go back to a nightmare. And so our challenge each and every day is to work, to fight the good fight of faith, um, to challenge pharaohs to let God's people go. But in challenging pharaohs, we got to be willing to go into the fiery furnace. We got to be willing to go into the lion's den. We got to be
Yeah.
willing to be trapped by the Red Sea and watch God deliver us to the promised land that He has for us.
Yes, 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 yes. God is able, and he is in it with us.
Mm-hmm.
So God bless each and every one of you. Thank you again for tuning in to Mind the Mental Monday. I hope you tune in next week, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Facebook Live, on Instagram Live. And please tune into my YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, it doesn't cost you a thing. I am asking you to please 329 on YouTube. If you are new to Mind the Mental Monday, you can find all the episodes of Mind the Mental Monday I've done so far. I think this is episode 52, I think. I've been doing this for 52 a full year. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it has been. Thank each and every one of you, and I pray that God's mercy on each and every one of us, and pray that you'll see each other again next week. God bless, and have a good week.